Hey everyone, Jeff Lee here at IBC 2018 at the Canon booth. Paul Atkinson, thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking at the new XF705. So I gotta say, I'm really personally a big fan of the XF series. I think there's definitely a place for cameras that have fixed lenses, have really long zoom ratios, etc. So tell us a little bit more about the 705 if you could.
Okay, so this is, I think, a worthy successor to the 305. This is a 305, as you'll know, has been around a long time, and it's a great workhorse. It's a great tool for a wide range filmmakers, documentary makers, news gatherers. Times are moving on, and the march towards 4K and towards ultra high definition and HDR as a combination is definitely getting there. Now, XF705 allows us to record a 4K image onto an SD card in 422 10-bit, which is something the market's been crying out for. To do that, we've now encompassing the new H.265 HEVC codec. So that's allowing us 160 megs per second in 4K. What we can also do with this camera is we can record directly to HDR. And if you remember back to some of our, well, most of our cinema range and some of the later XF range, we have this wide dynamic range setting to give you a good dynamic range without needing to grade. The integrated HDR recorded on this camera does exactly the same thing for HDR, and we have both flavors, HLG and PQ. So as an all-round tool for filmmakers for the next generation, it really is exactly, we think, where we need it to be.
Right. So you're seeing this as the answer to the television, the HDR production, documentaries, where one might need the efficiency of having an HEVC-based codec, as well as the HDR for future-proofing. Is that kind of where you guys are positioning it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know that HEVC is new. This is the first camera at this level to employ H.265 HEVC. So again, we just like to think we're being innovative. We're bringing something to the market that, as you say, is going to be completely future-proof. We can also do things on this to make life for the single shooter a lot easier. So it does feature our dual pixel CMOS AF system, including the manual version for focus assist. We also include, for the first time, the ability to shoot Canon Log 3. So if you wanted to go down the traditional HDR through workflow route, you absolutely can. When you add that, you've got a 15 times optical zoom. It's got a red band on it. It's an L lens. If we go to full HD mode, that becomes a 30 times zoom. And we can crop this down to 1920, 1080. But by cropping in this particular case for that output, we're actually downsampling. So we're not cropping it in the true sense. We do crop for slow motion. We also have a 12G SDI out, which means we can take an output of 4K, 422 10-bit UHD with HDR to an external device, or straight into appropriate broadcast equipment. We can take the same signal out through HDMI. We can also take out through either or a standard dynamic range image to the external recorder. So we can record HDR internally, SDR externally, and we have a feature on here called gain adjust, and we can adjust the gain by plus or minus 7.5 decibels to allow for the differences in exposure you need to make when shooting in either or.
Shooting a mixed HDR versus SDR, right? Yeah. So speaking of the codec, and can you comment on whether this H.265 HEVC codec will make its way into possibly other cameras, either via firmware or future updates, do you think?
Obviously, I can't talk about future plans. This is brand new for us. I personally think that HEVC is the only sensible way for us to be able to get onto affordable and relatively easy to obtain recorded media, that high bit rate 4K HDR that the content commissioners are demanding. So will it be featuring in other cameras? I'm sure it will. What those cameras will be, I don't know, and firmware plans, I can't really comment on those at this time.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. So will this also have some of like the night vision modes that the XF other series have?
So we have, if you've used an XF305, you're going to find this extremely familiar. We have refined it slightly. It does have the infrared shooting mode on it. We also have things like we have the ability to just press a single button near our audio control and immediately get our audio status up here. We can do 4-channel recording on this. You'll notice as well that we've sort of split the XLR cables. So traditionally we've always had 2 connectors at the front. Now we have one at the front and one at the back. And at the back we have a space to put a radio microceiver. Again, it helps balance it all out. like most of our cameras now, you can extensively customize it with assignable functions. This is, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but this is, I think, the most combinations of features you can assign to buttons that I've certainly seen in an XF and possibly even a Cinema EOS camera. So it's very, very customizable, and then you can share that information if you have a fleet of these things as well. So really aimed at that broad spectrum of XF305 users who now are ready to move on to the next level and replace that fantastic camera for the next level in the tool.
Right. And obviously, look at the shoulder pad configuration. You guys are making that really ergonomically friendly.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the things we've changed on this are again as a direct result of feedback from our customers. We did this with C300 to C300 Mark II, for instance. Nearly every difference on those two cameras, on the 300 Mark II compared to the original 300, is a result of customer feedback. Similarly on this. So it's little things that actually make life a lot easier for people. On the XF305 we had big covers that covered one rack of connectors, if you like. This, individual connectors. The grip here is not changeable, but the angle has been changed. And then we have this little shoulder pad here that when you put it into position, you've got instant, you go to a comfortable shooting position, you've got less strain on your wrist. That touchscreen monitor is right in front of you, the perfect position, and you've got so many points of contact that the 5-axis image stabilization system on this is going to get all the help it would ever need. Not that it needs help, but it's a fantastic system, but it's just going to make life a lot easier. So it's designed for the single shooter again, it's designed for small crews, owner-operators, corporate, that whole range that XF305 has been so successful in. This is designed to go into that slot.
Right, and we were talking a little bit before about in certain situations you can't swap lenses out in the field. It's not practical, and having that 15x zoom ratio is imperative.
There is absolutely still a big market for this kind of camera. Absolutely. If there wasn't, then we're not going to be investing time and resources into developing these. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be taking off in hostile environments, in dirty environments, dusty environments. A nice self-contained unit like this with a reasonable amount of weatherproofing, a good filtered cooling system as well, because obviously you are generating a lot of heat. The electronics having to work quite hard to get your 4K out of this. But a very versatile, and it's slightly lighter than the 305. Again, we can fold the screen away if we need to. It can be compact. So yeah, an all-round tool really for that documentary news gathering filmmakers.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. So final questions, I guess, availability and pricing. Like, when can we expect to see it?
Pricing is absolutely to be confirmed. I believe it's going to be around about the $7,000 mark, probably about the same euros. Availability is towards the end of this year, so looking around December time is for availability. There's one other thing as well that really goes into the broadcasting I'd like to mention is the IP streaming. So we're going to be able to offer 4K IP streaming at 60 meg per second in HEVC, in 4K or Full HD HEVC as well, and that will be available from product launch.
Well, that's great to hear as well. So you guys, again, future-proofing, looking at all the avenues of broadcast and whatnot. So great. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us at the Canon booth at IBC 2018. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.